My name is Sarah and I'm 42 years old. The digital clock on my dashboard flashed 1200 a.m. as I pulled into our driveway. Christmas Eve had officially arrived, though the holiday spirit had abandoned me somewhere between the third cardiac arrest and the fifth car accident victim at the Cleveland Metro Trauma Unit. My shoulders ached after a grueling 14-hour shift, my scrubs bearing the invisible weight of other people's tragedies. I fumbled with my house key in the freezing Ohio air, expecting darkness. My husband, David, was away on a business trip until tomorrow morning, and our daughter Emily had texted earlier about heading to my parents for their annual blow-up Christmas Eve dinner. The thought of my 16-year-old daughter spending time with family had been the one bright spot in my exhausting day. When I pushed open the door, soft lamplight spilled across our living room. My breath caught in my throat. Emily lay curled on the sofa, still wearing her winter coat, her face partially hidden beneath a cascade of dark hair. Her chest rose and fell in the shallow rhythm of troubled sleep. On the coffee table sat an untouched plate of food and a festive tin of her homemade gingerbread cookies. The ones she'd spent all yesterday afternoon perfecting, meticulously decorating with royal icing for her grandparents. "Emily," I whispered, kneeling beside her. Her eyelids fluttered open. For an instant, raw vulnerability flashed across her face before she tried to cover it with a smile that didn't come anywhere near her eyes. "Hey, Mom!" Her voice cracked. "You're home early. What happened, sweetheart?" I brushed the hair from her forehead, my fingers freezing. I noticed the crumpled green velvet dress beneath her coat. The one she'd spent weeks choosing. The one she'd tried on for me 4 times. Anxiously asking if it was nice enough for Grandma's fancy dinner. The dress was wrinkled now, its delicate fabric bearing the evidence of hours spent curled in defeat on our sofa. As she sat up, the lamplight caught the faint, silvery tracks of dried tears on her cheeks. "Nothing happened," she shrugged, reaching for nonchalance and missing by a mile. I didn't stay very long. Emily," I took her hands in mine. They were still ice cold. "Please tell me." Her eyes dropped to our intertwined fingers. "Grandma said there was no room at the table." My heart stopped. "What?" There were a lot of people there." Her voice grew smaller. "Neighbors, Dad's cousins, even Grandma's bridge club friends." The image formed in my mind with painful clarity. My daughter, driving herself to her grandparents' home in the car she'd only had for 3 months, proudly bearing gifts and her homemade cookies, expecting to be welcomed into the warmth of family tradition. "I drove over around 6, Emily continued, the words tumbling out now. "I parked where Uncle Mark always parks, you know. And I checked my hair in the mirror about 100 times tight." I nodded, my throat tight. Grandma answered the door with that smile. Emily's fingers twitched in mine. And she said, "Oh, Emily dear, we weren't expecting you until your mother arrived." The familiar cold feeling spread through my chest, the one that always accompanied interactions with my mother, Eleanor. She was a master of the subtle rejection, the one disguised as practicality. "I could see everyone at the table," Emily continued. "They had all the leaves in, the way they do for Thanksgiving. 26 people, Mom." I counted. There was Aunt Laura and Uncle Mark, and all their kids. There was Mrs. Peterson from next door, and Mr. and Mrs. Lambert from the Bridge Club. I closed my eyes, already knowing where this story ended. "Grandma told me there wasn't a chair for me." Emily's voice finally cracked. She said they hadn't set a place because they thought I was coming with you later. She said the guest room was full of coats, but I could wait in the kitchen if I wanted." My hands began to tremble with a rage so cold it burned. Aunt Laura pretended to be really interested in the potatoes. Emily swallowed hard. "So I left the gifts and the cookies. And I said I'd see them tomorrow." "You drove home in the storm," I said. It wasn't a question. I'd driven through the same blinding lake effect snow. Emily nodded. "It wasn't so bad. But it was. It was bad in ways that my 16-year-old shouldn't have to understand yet." The familiar weight of family obligation pressed down on me. The same weight I'd carried since I was a girl. I'd spent 8 years paying the mortgage and utilities on the very house my parents lived in. The house I'd purchased when my dad, Richard, lost his pension and they faced foreclosure. 8 years of monthly checks, always accompanied by my mother's criticism about how I'd abandoned the family for my fancy nursing degree. My father's voice echoed in my memory. You think you're better than us with your fancy degree. My sister Laura's constant refrain. Must be nice to be so educated. You can just forget where you came from. Every family gathering was laced with barbs disguised as jokes. Every holiday was heavy with their unspoken resentment of my success. A success I had used to save them. For years, I'd been the family peacekeeper. I smoothed ruffled feathers. I made excuses for their behavior, and I wrote the checks. I endured it all because that's what family did. Because walking away seemed crueler than staying and taking the abuse. But as I helped Emily to her feet, as I gently removed the coat she'd been wearing for hours in our warm house, something inside me didn't just shift. It broke. They didn't run out of chairs, Mom. Emily's voice was small but steady, her eyes meeting mine. They just didn't want me there. My hands stopped trembling. I helped my daughter to bed, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I tucked her in as if she were still a child, watching her eyelids grow heavy with the emotional exhaustion of the evening. Never again, sweetheart, I whispered as she drifted off. Never again. Later, I heard the front door open and close. David's familiar footsteps crossed the living room. He'd caught an earlier flight. Sarah, he called softly. I met him in the hallway. The untouched plate of food and the unopened tin of gingerbread cookies on the coffee table told a story I couldn't yet bring myself to repeat. When I finally explained what had happened, I watched shock, then disbelief, then a cold fury transform his features. They turned her away. His voice held the confusion of someone who had grown up in a normal, loving family, someone who couldn't grasp the particular, calculated cruelty of mine. I nodded, something cold and clear crystallizing inside me. My mother's petty tyranny. My father's weak submission. My sister's jealous complicity. In the quiet of our home, with my daughter sleeping down the hall, I made a decision. It was the decision every parent eventually faces. The moment when your learned compassion for toxic people must bow to the fierce, primal protection of your child. Some people didn't deserve second chances. Some tables weren't worth having a seat at. And some chairs were better left empty. If you've ever felt that impossible pull between protecting your family and protecting your own children, or if you know what it's like to be the peacemaker, who always gets hurt, please take a moment to show your support by clicking that like button. And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. This is just the beginning. The next morning, the manila folders lay spread across our kitchen table, an archive of 8 years of my financial servitude. David stood behind me, his hand a steady, warm weight on my shoulder, as I traced my finger over the neat rows of numbers in my checkbook register. 1,500, I whispered, flipping through page after page of identical entries. Every single month. For 8 years. That's 144,000, Sarah. David's voice held no judgment, just the quiet calculation of a man who worked in finance. I'd risen before dawn on Christmas morning. While Emily and David slept, I slipped into my home office and unlocked the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. The records I'd kept out of meticulous habit now spread before us like evidence at a crime scene. Look at this. I pushed a property tax statement toward David. The house is solely in my name. I'm not helping them with their mortgage. There is no mortgage. I bought that house outright for them. David nodded, his jaw tightening. And these payments, utilities, property taxes, home insurance, maintenance. Each word felt like a stone dropping into a deep well. I've been paying for everything. For 8 years. The kitchen light cast harsh shadows across the growing pile of evidence. Bank statements showed regular transfers to my sister, Laura, for help with the kids. Credit card bills detailed gifts I'd been guilted into buying for my niece and nephew. Laptops, gaming systems, designer clothes. While Emily had learned to keep her own wishes modest. Remember last Christmas? I pulled out a credit card statement. I bought Laura's daughter, Sophia, that new Footers 200 iPhone. Emily asked for art supplies. Just watercolors and decent paper. David's finger traced down to a handwritten note I'd made in the margin. Ianner said Emily's request was, finally reasonable. Beneath that, another folder held a stack of birthday cards from the past 5 years. Each one from my parents contained a crisp, $20 bill for Emily. Each one for Laura's children contained checks for 200. I should have seen it sooner, I whispered. The morning light strengthened, illuminating a small, leather, bound book I'd found tucked between Emily's mattress and box spring while changing her sheets last month. I hadn't read it then, respecting her privacy. Now, with her sleepy permission given just an hour ago, I opened the journal to the pages she'd marked. Grandma told everyone my art award wasn't real, because my school gives them to everyone. It was the regional showcase winner. Only one student from each high school. Cousin Sophia's dance recital today. Everyone went. Grandma said there wasn't enough room in the car for me. Found out later they took 2 cars. Christmas at grandparents again. All the cousins got new tablets. I got socks. Mom looked sad but didn't say anything. I don't want to make it worse for her. The last entry, dated just 2 months ago, shattered my heart. Haven't told Mom about Thanksgiving dinner. She works so hard. No point making her feel bad when she can't fix Grandma anyway. My hands trembled as I closed the journal. She's been protecting me. While you've been protecting them, David said, his voice tight. Sarah, you've been paying for your own daughter's rejection. The kitchen grew quiet. Outside, a neighbor's child shouted with Christmas morning delight. Inside our home, the only gift being unwrapped was the harsh, ugly truth of years of exploitation. This isn't about one dinner, I said finally, clarity replacing the confusion that had clouded my judgment for years. It's about Emily's worth. The doorbell rang. I glanced at the clock, 10:30 a.m. My friend Jessica King stood on our porch, a bottle of champagne in one hand and a foil-covered dish in the other. Merry Christmas, she called as I opened the door. I brought brunch, hope that's. She took one look at my face, and the smile vanished. She set her offerings on the entry table. What's wrong? An hour later, Jessica, my attorney, sat at our kitchen table. Her legal pad covered with notes, the champagne forgotten. It's straightforward, Sarah, she said, tapping her pen against the property tax statements. The house is in your name. They are, essentially, tenants, at will. They have no lease. We can file a 60-day notice to vacate. Isn't that cruel? The question slipped out, the ingrained guilt rising one last time. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Is it cruel to stop someone from taking advantage of you? Is it cruel to protect your daughter from calculated emotional abuse? My phone buzzed. A text from Maria, my nurse colleague who'd canceled her own plans to cover my shift. How's your day? Better than the ER? I hope. I texted back a brief summary. Her response was immediate. My mother did the same to my son. Call me if you need to talk to someone who's been there. David's hand covered mine on the table. I'll support whatever you decide. I need to talk to Emily first, I said. We found her in her room, sketching by the window. Mom. She looked up, sensing the weight of our presence. What's wrong? I sat beside her on the bed. We're not going to your grandparents for New Year's. Something flickered in her eyes. Relief, uncertainty. Then a cautious hope. Really? Really? And there are going to be other changes too. I explained it all. The house, the money, the decision forming in my mind. With each sentence, her shoulders relaxed, as if a physical burden was lifting. Jessica's downstairs, I finished. She's helping us draft some letters. Emily nodded slowly. Are you sure? They're your parents. Even now, she worried about my feelings. I'm sure, I said, the decision solidifying. This isn't just about one dinner, honey. It's about you. It's about us. Later that evening, after Jessica had gone, after Maria had called offering quiet encouragement, after David had ordered Chinese food, because none of us felt like cooking, I sat at the kitchen table again. The eviction notice lay before me. 60-day notice to vacate premises. Next to it, a letter terminating all financial support, effective immediately. My hand didn't shake as I signed both documents. David stood in the doorway. You okay? No, I admitted. But I will be. I sealed the envelopes. Tomorrow, they would be delivered by a process server. Tomorrow, everything would change. I paused at Emily's door, finding her still awake. All done, she asked. I nodded. All done. She set down her phone and studied my face. Then, slowly, her lips curved into a genuine smile, the first I'd seen in days. Mom, she said softly, I've never seen you stand up to them. In my daughter's quiet approval, I found the strength to face whatever came next. 3 days later, the eviction notice lay in torn halves on my porch. My mother, Eleanor, stood over them, her face flushed. Despite the winter chill, sweat beaded on her hairline, her finger jabbing toward me like a weapon. This is how you repay us. After all the sacrifices we've made for you. I leaned against the doorframe, surprised by the calm spreading through my chest. The old Sarah would have rushed to apologize, to smooth things over. But that Sarah was gone. You'll need to leave the premises within 60 days, as legally required, I said, my voice steady. Since you've destroyed the notice, I'll have my attorney send another, certified this time. Eleanor's mouth opened, then closed. This wasn't in her script. Sophia's ski trip is next month. She switched tactics, her voice softening. $900. If you'll just handle that, we can forget all this nonsense. No. One syllable. It had taken 42 years to find. Eleanor's mask slipped. You always were a selfish, ungrateful girl. Putting yourself above your family. Goodbye, mother. I closed the door on her sputtering rage. I leaned against the wall, waiting for the flood of guilt that never came. Instead, I called Jessica. We need another eviction notice, certified mail. And yes, she was trespassing. The voicemails started that evening. My father's voice, full of wary disappointment. A tactic far more effective at triggering guilt than my mother's rage. Sarah, you're destroying this family over nothing. Your mother is beside herself. Call us so we can fix this. Nothing. Emily's exclusion was nothing. 8 years of financial support was nothing. I deleted the message. By morning, my phone buzzed with extended family. Uncle Robert, Aunt Susan, all asking what this nonsense was about. Then came Laura's Facebook post shared by 17 family members before lunch. Prayers needed for my elderly parents facing homelessness in the dead of winter. My sister, the successful nurse, has decided her education makes her too good for us and has abandoned her family responsibilities. Some people forget who helped them. The bank manager looked uncomfortable. You're requesting the termination of all automatic payments. These have been set up for 8 years, yes, mortgage, utilities, taxes, and the monthly stipend. I placed my driver's license on the desk. All of it ends today, and you're certain, completely. At home, I created a new folder on my laptop documentation. Inside went scanned bank statements, property records, and screenshots of Laura's posts. I started a new document communication timeline. David installed the new security cameras. Your mother called my cell, he said, his laugh holding no humor. Told me I needed to control my wife. I told her I've never tried, and I'm not starting now. 3 days later, Eleanor ambushed me in the hospital parking garage after my night shift. After all we've done for you, she shrieked, blocking my path. My father stood beside her looking miserable. What you've done to Emily is unforgivable, I said, keeping my voice low. One dinner. You're throwing us out on the street over one dinner. Because your daughter didn't get special treatment. Special treatment. The words escaped me. She's my child. Your granddaughter. There were 26 people at that table. Neighbors, bridge club members, everyone but Emily. You ungrateful. Eleanor, a voice called out. It was Maria, my colleague, walking over. She's paid your mortgage for 8 years. We've all heard the stories. This is a private matter, Eleanor snapped. Not when you're harassing my colleague in our workplace, Maria said, folding her arms. The narrative began to crumble. Pastor Bill called. Boundaries aren't unchristian, Sarah. Neither is protecting your child. The certified eviction notice was delivered to Laura's house during her Sunday dinner. My cousin Martha called within an hour. They're living in your house. All these years. Eleanor told everyone you were just helping with a few bills because Dad had been so generous with your college tuition. Dad lost his pension, Martha. I bought the house to save them from foreclosure. I've been paying everything. Good Lord, Martha's voice dropped. And, Christmas Eve, 26 people. No room for Emily. That, Martha said, her voice hard, sounds like Eleanor. The dam broke, the extended family support evaporated as the financial truth emerged. On day 45, I got a text from Laura. We need to talk. Alone. We met at a coffee shop. I was recording. This is breaking Mom's heart, Laura said, stirring her coffee. We need to stick together. That's what family does. I waited. They don't believe you're really going through with it, she said. Have they started packing? I asked. Her gaze dropped. It's hard. Where will they go? Dad's arthritis. Mom can't handle stairs. Their housing isn't my responsibility. Emily can have a seat next time, Laura blurted, leaning forward. If you stop this, we'll make sure she's included. I promise. I reached into my folder and slid a single page across the table. This is a timeline of every time Emily was excluded from family events over the past 3 years. Birthdays, holidays, Barbecues. I met her eyes. Did you ever once stand up for her? Her silence was damning. The eviction stands, I said, closing the folder. The financial support ends. So that's it? Her face flushed. You're severing ties because Emily got her feelings hurt. I stood up. Emily is my family. I chose her. On day 58, the intervention arrived. My mother, father, and a jury of aunts and uncles, all sitting in my living room. Stephanie, my father began. The Bible tells us to honor thy father and mother. Your parents are in their 70s, Aunt Louise added. Do you want them dying on the streets over a misunderstanding? Think about Emily's reputation, Eleanor said softly, aiming her words at my daughter. She'll be known as the reason her grandparents lost their home. The pressure was immense. Anonymous letters had arrived, threatening and Holder abuse, investigation. Helen had called the hospital, weeping to my supervisor. Maybe we should let them stay, Emily whispered to me, her compassion her greatest weakness. Just until they find some place. I found myself wavering. Michael caught my eye. His slight head shake reminded me of our late night conversation. This isn't one more month, Sarah. It's the rest of our lives. I looked at my family, this jury of enablers. The decision is final. Day 60 arrived. Eviction day. Michael, Emily, and I sat in the living room. Jessica, my attorney, was in the kitchen. My parents arrived with a small U-Haul. No Laura. She'd stopped speaking to them after they'd tried to move into her house last week. This is your last chance to be reasonable, Stephanie, Helen hissed. I handed her the property release forms. I'm not doing this to you, Mom. I'm doing this for Emily. We should have treated the girl better, my father said quietly. Not to me. To Helen. We shouldn't have kept her waiting in the kitchen that night. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard. Helen snatched the papers, signing with angry strokes. You'll regret this when we're gone. I took the keys she held out. I already regret the years I let you hurt my daughter. The loading took 2 hours. As the truck pulled away, Helen didn't look back. My father lifted his hand in a brief, uncertain wave. I closed the door, the soft click of the lock sounding the end of a chapter. The next morning, Emily found me in the kitchen. There's a for sale sign in the yard, she said. The other yard, I clarified, pointing to my parents' former home. I'm selling it. The proceeds are going into a trust. For your education. For my phone buzzed. A blocked number. A new voicemail. Helen most likely. I held my finger over the icon. Some messages, I said, don't deserve to be heard. I pressed delete. The message and the last of my guilt vanished. 2 years have transformed our lives. The morning sun streams through our bay windows, casting golden rectangles across the dining table, where college brochures are fanned out. Emily's fingertips trace the embossed logo of her top choice. The Pratt Institute in New York. The dark shadows that once lived beneath her eyes have vanished, replaced by a quiet confidence that makes my heart swell. Whatever you choose, Em. We're behind you, David says, his hand finding mine. Our new home breathes with lightness. Friends drop by unannounced. The relatives who stood by us occupy the guest rooms during holidays. There is a peace here that feels earned. By evening, our dining table is extended to its full length. Chairs borrowed from neighbors to accommodate everyone for Christmas Eve dinner. Emily moves confidently through the room, her grace effortless. I pause, a serving spoon suspended over the mashed potatoes, struck by the parallel. The same holiday, the same meal. But this table is filled with 26 people who genuinely want to be here. No forced politeness. No cutting remarks. No empty chairs. No empty chairs at our table, I whisper. David catches my eye and winks. Later, a young nurse from my new unit, Chloe, corners me in the kitchen. My brother's been living in my spare room for 8 months, she confides. He hasn't looked for work, and my parents say I'm selfish for wanting my space back. I rinse a serving bowl. Your peace matters too. Sometimes the kindest thing for everyone is a boundary. Emily appears in the doorway. Mom helped me understand something important, she adds, sliding next to me. Letting someone take advantage of you isn't doing them a favor. It just teaches them that using people works. So how do you do it? Chloe asks, her eyes full of tears. You start, I say, by believing you deserve it. My phone buzzes. A blocked number, a text. Hope you're proud of what you've done. Without reading further, I delete it. No anxiety, no guilt, just peace. Emily rushes back in, clutching an envelope. Mom, it came early. My acceptance letter. I pull her into an embrace, feeling the solid, strong presence of the young woman she's become. The next morning, as Emily packs for a campus visit, I slip a framed photograph into her suitcase. It's our chosen family, all 26 of us, gathered around last Thanksgiving's table, faces bright with genuine connection. Remember who truly loves you, I whisper. Before she leaves, I make one final entry in the journal I've kept since that fateful Christmas. They said there was no room for my daughter at the table. Now, there is no room left in our lives for cruelty. Thank you for listening to our story. The lesson I had to learn, the hard way, is that true family isn't about obligation, it's about protection and respect. Sometimes, the most loving act isn't holding on tighter, it's letting go. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your family of origin and the family you've built? What did you do? And what did you learn? Please share your own wisdom and stories in the comments section below. Your experience might be the one thing someone else needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you, please click that like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that understand the complexities of family. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. We truly appreciate your support.